Welcome to Time for Real Action. Today's topic is about life with an autistic child, and I'm joined here today with Melanie and Rafia, who are both parents who both have 8-year-old sons. Their journeys have been very, very different. While one parent had a lot of support, a lot of information and got that early diagnosis, so straight away they can spur into action and support their son's development. Another parent will share a different journey. Rafia will be sharing her journey where information, support and get that diagnosis was extremely difficult to come by. There are over 700,000 people living in the UK who are autistic. Now, if we think about in terms of families, that means 2.7 million people are living with autism. That is living with autism on a day-to-day, every single day of their lives. Also, interestingly, autism is more prevalent in boys than it is in girls. Parents, when they realise that their child's development is not coming along as it is with other children, want to get down to the core of what actually is the problem. Over a third of families end up waiting for more than 3 years for a diagnosis of autism. The impact on families' life ranges and it's huge. We're talking about families having lack of sleep, meticulously having to arrange and organise everything down to the finer detail. Routine tends to be essential as well. And then also trying to share their time with other family members. Now, Rafia, you have had a very different experience compared to what Melanie will be sharing with us earlier. So could you let us know a little bit about, when you first had cause of concern where you felt, actually, I need to talk to somebody and get some information and some advice because something doesn't seem to be quite right in terms of how my son is developing?
Yeah, well, he was actually 18 months old when I first started to get concerned. He wasn't reaching his milestone, so I spoke to his health visitor and then she got us in contact with the psychologist who told us it could take up to 18 years to get a diagnosis.
That's 18 years?
Which is a very long time, yeah. 5 years down the line, the only concrete diagnosis we have, if you want to call it diagnosis, is autistic traits, behavioural problems. He's got an emotional needs as well, and everything needs to be out of routine. We need to treat him like an autistic child.
Rafi, could you explain for families and the audience that are tuning into this programme, could you explain a little bit more about what autistic traits is, what it means?
It's a neurological disorder. For example, in autumn times the leaves fall on the floor. Jahid can't comprehend why that happens. Or it could be a change of 2 pavement colours. You'll have to physically pick him up and take him over to the other side. Otherwise he won't walk there. And then you've got communication problems, sensory and behavioural problems, learning difficulty as well.
Okay. You also earlier shared with me how you've had to make lots of changes with the family and your home environment because it's so important so your son's needs can actually be met within the home. Could you explain what those changes were, what they consisted of?
Just making the whole house simple as possible, less clutter, clean, calming colours, especially his bedroom. Even though he does have sensory equipment out in the daytime, at night time it all gets packed away. Otherwise he gets unsettled and needs his elephant to keep him calm.
I think we've got a picture here of his elephant. There we go.
Yeah, so he just sits there and he'll touch that. We've got wallpapers that are 2-tone fabric. You could have like plastic to velvet, the cushions, the carpets, all textured stuff. When he is a bit unsettled, he will go and touch all that. And then we've got locks a majority of the doors just to keep him safe as well as the other children. You can't leave him for a second, you don't know what's going to happen. So for that reason we do have locks all around the house and safety plugs, the usual that you'd have for a baby rather than an 8-year-old. Yeah.
Okay, so what impact has it had in terms of your family having a member of the family who's autistic?
I've got to say it's been more difficult for my husband to accept it He just thought it was Jahid just playing around, and maybe I didn't have enough time to spend with him, and that is why Jahid's a bit slow. But his dad's getting there, he's learning, he's reading, and he's playing with Jahid more. So other than that, really, my little girl, Yasmin, and Ismail have taken him on and, just treat him like every other child with a little bit more help.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 8 years is a long time to finally get somebody who can actually say, and we think this is actually what is presented for your child. This is a name for what's been going on. For example, you've shared with us about autistic traits and possibly a child being an autistic spectrum disorder.
Yeah.
What type of support have you actually had then? I mean, for 8 years, what information and support did you receive over that period of time?
To be honest, not a lot. Since he hasn't got a diagnosis, we can't have a label or anything like that on him. The majority of the groups have closed the door to us. But then through Jahid School, we found a group called Include Me Too, which has helped me a lot. Gave me a voice, gave my son a voice. Via that, I've been able to reach out to, the service that say they're not taking on people unless they've got a diagnosis. But if you know the right words and the right places to go, they, they're more accepting. And through that, I haven't given up. They're really supportive. And their experience, you learn a lot more things. I think you need that, people that have experienced it, somebody that you can relate to. So I've gone and spoken to the psychologist and said, look, I need a scan for his head because he's does self-harm. So because of that, I've gone for a head scan and we're going for a genetics test. So I think Include Me Two's been the backbone for me right now.
That's what it's all about. It's about us together ensuring that we can raise an awareness about the range of different disabilities and impairments our children have, and get people to understand in terms of our family life, and also to kind of accept our children and our family members.
Definitely.
Okay, thank you, Rafia. Thank you for that. Hi, Melanie. You just heard from Rafia how over 8 years she's been waiting to have a name or have somebody to explain to her why her son had development delays. Yourself, your experience has been very different. You had a lot of support from earlier on, and I think we've got a picture of Raekwon here. There we go. Absolutely gorgeous. 8 years old, and it was very different for you, your experience, because you had that support right from the start. Could you let us know what good support looks like and how it's benefited you?
Well, Raekwon was diagnosed at 18 months with autistic spectrum disorder, which is a brain development disorder, by the health visitor through his milestones. He wasn't reaching the milestones. She then referred us on to the early year support and also to the GEM Centre, where it's like a children's centre where all services are under one roof. And through Dr. Moore, through a series of tests that we had, she diagnosed him with autistic spectrum disorder.
It must have been a relief to straight away have somebody to explain to you what was actually going on. And what happened in terms of straight after, in terms of support? Once you had that diagnosis, what support was put into place for you?
Raekwon was at mainstream nursery, and we was put automatically into, through early years support, I was given a key worker, and the key worker, we had 1 session a week at a special nursery where he was supported with his development delays and his sensory issues that he's had in the communication disabilities that he did have, and that was 1 day a week, and all the rest of the other 4 days a week were at mainstream school with support from early years going into the school to actually help him, support him with communication and social skills.
Could you explain a little bit about what a key worker is? Because it sounds like somebody who's got a key. Now, is it a key to services, key to information? It seems like a very important role. Could you explain a little bit about the role of the key worker with yourself?
The key worker helped myself, the family and Raekwon to access services. She coordinated all of professionals that worked with Raekwon. So we had occupational therapy, we had the consultant, we had health visitors, we had nursery staff, we had doctors. So anybody that was involved with Raekwon, she would actually organise all of the professionals and make sure that they were doing their job really. And then we was part of a team around the child, which takes into consideration all the professionals need to go around to the table and tell us exactly once a month what they were doing to help support Raekwon.
So it feels like you had a flood of lots and lots of support, and obviously that it would have been a lot for a family trying to coordinate those meetings and talk to people. So we've got one element where the key worker helps bring professionals together and then support that team around the child, all those people that are supporting your son.
Yes.
And then on the other end, in terms of that information, how did you? Was there a lot of support in terms of kind of gathering the information?
Well, the gathering of information was done through an early bird programme, which was put on by the GEM Centre through the early years support, which was a series of 6 workshops that for children that were early diagnosed with, newly diagnosed with autism. So we was put on a set of 6 workshops which helped our parents just to get their head round exactly what was going on, what had happened, and it was a set around behaviour, around psychological, around toileting, around eating, and just actually getting your head around what actually was autism and what autistic spectrum disorder was.
Okay. Also, Rafi explained about making lots of changes in the home and family environment. Have you had any resources in terms of supporting your son?
We've had a new room, a special adaptation from the Independent Living Services, and which helps our son have a space for himself, where he has all of his toys, all of his sensory toys in there, and he's actually got a space for himself because he didn't have his own space. Social worker came in and saw us and said that he doesn't have his own space where he can actually sit down and have his own toys and actually be able to play somewhere, like a breakout room for him to actually have that. So we've got that, and all of his toys have been bought in specially. And as Rafia says, we have to keep everybody safe, locks on doors, you know, and all them, just to keep everybody safe and actually to keep Raekwon safe as well.
And I think we've got another picture of your family with Raekwon. Because families, obviously, it takes an effect, as we said, 2.7 million people are living with autism, whether it be themselves or whether it be a family member. So obviously it has a huge impact, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you cannot enjoy having a family life together. Yeah. I think once you've got that support in, life can be a lot more easier.
Definitely,
as well.
Yes.
But also, in our previous show, we were talking to parents about some of the skills they've also learned. For example, a mother had learnt BSL,
Yes.
which is absolutely fantastic, so she could help communicate with her children. At the same time, she was able to transfer some of those skills to her family members, so they could also communicate with their children who were both of her deaf children. Just in terms of some of the skills that you've learned, because I know you did share something earlier with me, that you've also learned a form of language and communication. Do you want to explain a little bit about that too?
Yes, as Rafia said earlier, it's Makaton signing. Makaton signing is specifically for children who are autistic or have learning disabilities, and it is totally different to British Sign Languaging because you talk as you do the signs as well, so you to say the sentences. Raekwon is non-verbal, which he has no verbal communication at all, so we do sign with him as well as a verbal prompting as well at the same time. So yes, Makaton sign is specifically for children with autism, which takes into consideration that you have to talk as well as you do the signs as well at the same time.
Show us a sign.
Yes, I could show you the sign for would you like a biscuit? So that is a biscuit. And also to sit, would you like to sit down? So it's quite simple. And also for stop, stop. So that is a few signs that we use in Makaton. But as I said, it always comes with verbal prompting as well at the same time.
I'd just like to ask both of you, if you have got some key messages for parents, what would those messages be, i.e. some top tips?
For me, it'd be to have patience and to keep a routine, you know, plan the day ahead so everybody knows what they're doing.
Okay.
For me, it's most probably to access services that are available, social services, websites, your early year support team, and also to use the team around the child, which will help you to access a lot of services as well, and actually to get you support that you need. Autism is a hidden or invisible disability. You can't see that they have that disability, but it's always going to be there.
We've had two parents today share their very different stories. This is nothing new. Many local authorities offer different range of services. Many families, whilst you have a comparison of families that have very good support, they get the diagnosis, information is received, they're able to access fantastic programs like Early Bird, get the support from the early support teams, and they are on their track, they're on their path to ensure that their child's life and their future looks a lot more brighter, and as a family they're able to function within that family home together again. On the other hand, you've got families that are still being lost in the whole mechanism in terms of information and support, that are waiting for diagnosis, and because they're waiting for such a long time for diagnosis, it has a huge impact on their family life. It has a huge impact on their child, in short, in terms of we are missing out on valuable time to ensure that child is supported so they can learn and develop and also have a brighter future. There still seems to be a lot of disparities in terms of Black, Asian, ethnic minority families. Families are still not aware of what autism is. Families still aren't aware of their rights or what relevant services they can support. And also there's still a limited amount of relevant support that are appropriate to support the families and autistic children's needs, particularly from Black, Asian, minority and ethnic families. Furthermore, the National Autistic Society did a report back in 2007 called Missing Out. In there, it highlighted that 24% of those families had their children who were excluded due to their autism. From that sample, 74% of those families actually had shared that they had no sufficient support from the local authority while that child was excluded at home. I'm going to now leave you with a short break and a message.
People with autism and their families from Black and ethnic minority communities across the UK face a number of challenges accessing the services and support they need. Work already done by the National Autistic Society and by organisations like Include Me Too have uncovered a number of difficulties. These include access to advice and support, and as Include Me Too's work has pointed out, it can be particularly difficult for families from Black and ethnic minority communities to be represented on participation groups and bodies that show local and national government what people think in the community. Other challenges can be to do with having English as a second language, or the fact that service staff can make assumptions about people's cultural communities that make it harder for them to get the right support. In order to improve things for people from BME communities, a number of things need to change. First of all, we need to make sure that decision makers in local and national government are more aware of the kind of issues that these communities face. We also need to make sure there's better training and understanding of autism, and of course the kind of challenges that families with autism can face. We also need better understanding amongst school staff, in hospitals, throughout the care system, and further afield. The National Autistic Society is taking a number of steps to try to improve understanding and awareness of the issues faced by families with autism in BME communities across the UK. Following a report that we produced for our 50th birthday last year, we're fully aware of the need to make sure the needs and the services that adults with autism and children need from ethnic minority communities are fully understood and reflected in all the work that we do. As a result, the NAS is working in partnership with organisations such as Include Me Too and others around the country to run focus groups across the UK over the summer. These groups will allow adults with autism, parents, professionals, carers and others with an interest and understanding of these issues to get together and think about some of the challenges they face and also some of the solutions they need. We'll be pulling this work together into a report that will go to national and local government and should help really to raise awareness of some of these issues. It's very important that the National Autistic Society and other organisations such as Include Me Too work together on this. We bring between us a wealth of experience and understanding, both of autism in general and of the issues faced by BME communities in particular. It's especially important that we work together in order that communities who are maybe harder to reach or that we have less contact with really have their voices heard, and we make sure that in all the work we do, they're fully represented.
Thank you for joining us. I have now got Raj Jarmut, who is a learning disabilities nurse and done a lot of work with many families who have autistic children. Raj, one of the key things is when somebody's explaining about autistic spectrum disorder, covers such a range of different needs. Could you explain about what that range is in terms of autistic spectrum disorder?
Autism spectrum disorder, yes, it's a spectrum. So you've got severe autism, where children may have severe learning disabilities as well as their autism, and they do find it difficult living day-to-day life. They may require a lot of support. And you've got some children or people that will actually live a fairly independent life. And you've got the other side of the spectrum, which is high-functioning autism, them have Asperger's syndrome.
Okay, thank you for that. I know this is since you've worked a lot with families. What, in terms of information, what is your, because earlier on the families, the parents that were here were sharing that one of the difficulties, there's a disparity between information and accessing the right support. What is your experience been of that, Raj?
I feel it has worked in part of a learning disability service at Birmingham Children's Hospital. We do find that parents do find it struggle to come to terms with their child's diagnosis. But it's quicker, the better that they come to terms with the diagnosis, we can start to look at the diagnosis process. So it's first of all, they're recognising that the child may have autism, and that doesn't come to light until the age of 18 months to 24 months, when you start to look at signs that your child is regressing in skills or the behaviours changing. So they really need to keep an eye on their child at that time and bring it to their GP's attention. Then services can start to play a part in addressing their child's needs. And it's very important that, the child gets diagnosed early as possible, so systems and strategies can be put into place to prevent that child for their health from deteriorating further.
You just mentioned, Raj, about systems and strategies. Could you explain a little bit what those would look like for a family and for the autistic child?
Yeah. When a child comes into contact with our Tier 3 service at the Birmingham Children's Hospital, the child may display challenging behaviour that challenges services, challenges people, and they may start to show some mental distress. I'd just like to point out that autism isn't a mental illness. It's something that autism can create. Autism can create a learning disability and mental illness in an individual. So we do everything in our services to prevent that from happening. We work with families very closely in kind of identifying how autism is affecting their child. So we have to work with parents very closely, because they're the ones that are spending day in, day out with their children. And we do a set of observations, and then we work out with family the appropriate behavioural management strategies and how you respond to their behaviours, and how you put structures into place where they may involve a teach approach. So they have symbols that they can actually use for the routine throughout the day, for the morning routine, for the afternoon routine, for the evening routine. So it prevents distress for the person to making sense of the world around them.
So is that where you've got the pictures? So if you're, for example, asking a child to go to bed, there's a picture of a bed.
Yes.
So it's just kind of putting in terms of they've got something visual to look at, so it's like a visual aid.
Yes, it is a visual aid.
Okay.
And it's got pictures in that the child understands. It could be object of reference that they understand, or it could be certain pictures that they understand what's expected of them. We find that reduces the child's stress level significantly.
Okay.
And then it helps the family to get that message across the child, but also by using a communication system like this, enables the child to develop and learn.
Raj, you just mentioned again about anxiety, and that is key. It's really key that the strategies that you refer to and the routines are put into place to reduce the child's anxieties, and it's so essential to ensure that parents are working with professionals. Do you want to expand a little bit more about it? Because obviously it's about the support that professionals and services are able to offer to families and autistic children.
And it's very important to understand the world from the child's eyes, and to kind of get a good idea of how their autism is affecting them through their senses and through their communication and through their imagination and interacting with others. So we need to gain a good understanding of that to start to build up strategies and methods to enable that child's anxiety levels to be always managed. Because we are looking at the world around us, there's so many triggers for their behaviours and their reactions that cause them, basically their anxiety levels to be sky high. So we do everything that we can, and the key thing is that we really need parents to be in tune with their child, then use us as professionals and liaise with us, and put our two heads together and come up with strategies and with methods to reducing their anxieties.
Also, children who are autistic also have their sensory perception, and the way that they actually process sensory information is very different. Could you explain that a little bit more to us, please?
We do find that children and adults with autism do find difficulty with their senses and how to control their environment in regards to their senses. So that is smell, touch, your hearing, and your, help me out, your five senses, taste. Yes. So they're your five senses, and basically they act over or under sensitivity to these senses. So we have to be aware of that. Something that we may like eating, they may find very bitter and won't like the texture of it, won't like the smell of it. So we need to be aware and listen to the young person through their behaviours. What are they trying to tell us? How can we adapt the environment and their day-to-day life to cater for their autism and to reduce their anxieties?
Thank you, Raj, for sharing that. Is there any last message that you'd like to give?
What I would like to say is that yes, it is hard work for families, but if they can get over the initial stage of getting to know their child and how autism affects them, and work with the specialist services, that's if their child requires that specialist service, that the hard work does pay off when you see your child able to learn and develop.
Thank you, Raj. Today, as you can see, that there is a long way to go to support families and to understand within our own communities what autism is. Families that have tuned in today, if you feel that in terms of you've got any stories about where you've had very good support, or families that feel that they don't know where to go, where to get that information, where to get that support, please do get in contact with us. You can contact us on our details that are, I believe, will be scrolling down on the screen, but you can get in contact with us on www.includeme2.org.uk. That's our website. You can contact us, call us on 01902 399 888, so it's 01902 399 888. We'd love to listen and hear from yourselves. And please, if anybody wants to get involved in the work that we do, and any families that want to get in touch and would like to talk to us about some of the issues that were discussed here at this show, do get in touch with us. We'll see you next time, and until then, look after yourselves, and Sasri Gal.